Hello everybody and Carlos Irta to a brand new episode. I'm babifly and today we're playing a game from Different Tales, Werewolf the Apocalypse, Heart of the Forest. It's a story-driven game where we get to play as a werewolf and we try to find our roots, going back to a Polish forest, deep in the heart of Poland. We try to find more about our family. Check out the previous episode to see what we've been through. It's a game about controlling your rage and maintaining your relationships and facing the consequences of your choices. So let's dive right into it on episode 2. Insofar, we've managed to play episode 1 and it was a huge success. Right now we're on chapter 2, logging. So we're expected to be asked to go to the logging camp. So the day after, the next morning was full of sunshine and birdsong. I could smell the heat of the afternoon building, those long honey like hours in late June when the earth isn't tired of its own warmth yet. But it was crisp and pleasant now. Thus I got up. I sat on my bed for a moment, letting my feet dangle from it. I wasn't sure how I felt, because I have balance raised. The weight of the previous day had coiled up somewhere in my chest, and it felt like a tiny merry-go-round gaining speed. And there was a dream. The clearing, the animals in the night sky waiting for me. I took a shower, ate something without really paying attention, and went out. Anya stayed behind, so she chose to stay behind. It's quite interesting because Anya still resents us. It looks like she doesn't like our company. So yeah, she's still cautious. And I'm a tad cautious myself now because she refused to do so twice in a row. We've increased our bravery, our inspiring trait, and our analytical one. And what we also got was that people protesting the logging clearly knew something about my family. I should go talk to them. Okay? So let's carry on. So a change of scenery. We're in Białowieża. I was halfway through the forest when I realized I was walking toward the logging site. Protests, activists, answers. Let's go there. Let's go to the logging site. We don't have any other choice, do we? Against the machines. I was running all the options over and over in my head, and I didn't really care where I was going. When I looked up, the sun was shining. The village was far behind me, and I was at the logging site. No more stalling. It was time to set my plan in motion. So what exactly was my plan? I had to learn about my family. Well, to be honest with you, I would love to stop the logging, but then can just a single person pull that off? First and foremost, my plan is to learn something about my family and then stop the logging, right? It sounds like a sound plan, to me at least. I needed to figure out how my family fitted into all this. I looked around. On my right was the ancient forest, and that's because we're brave. On my left was the freshly torn clearing. Ahead of me, ruining the view, were huge logging machines and a group of people arguing in their shadow. A perfect picture of a battlefield seconds before the first shots are fired. I looked at the machines. I'd never seen a harvester before, and I was shocked by the vile ugliness of the machine. There were 3 at the site. Their long metal arms were wrapped with black pipes that looked like glistening intestines or weird, hanging sperm sacs, and they reeked. The stench was dark, rancid, and putrid, yet none of the people there seemed to smell it. Not the reporters, not the police, not the loggers, not the protesters. I couldn't understand. The clearing was full of that smell. I saw a familiar face among the protesters. It might be because we're not used to that smell, or because we're a werewolf and we're more attuned with Mother Nature. I noticed Daniel. He stood near a group of arguing protesters, but as I cast my eyes on him, he went to one of the harvesters, turned his back on the other people there, and started pissing on the machine. The protesters were clearly conflicted. I want to know what it was all about. I would love to solve the conflict, but I don't know how. And about the advice thing, I'm not sure. I'm a foreigner. Remember, we're in Poland and we are playing the American girl here. So, first and foremost, let's learn what this is all about. Curious about the reason for it all, I approached the protesters. One of the police officers, young and nervous, said something I didn't fully understand. I shrugged. I don't understand, I shrugged. His face fell. Oh, he said, you're one of them, and then let me go. Then I noticed that I wasn't alone. And then I noticed that someone used the commotion to sneak with me past the police. A girl with disheveled, bleached out hair. Don't worry, she patted the officer on the arm. It was an awful pickup line anyway. He recoiled. You shouldn't touch me, Mum. I smiled. Rolling your eyes on an officer in front of the officer is not a nice thing. So Pat grew up to be sympathetic to us. So Pat is a brand new person, just introduced to the story, right? I smiled at her and wanted to say something, but I was interrupted. Pat, Cornell called her from the gathering. Could you come here? I need you to show Olga that chart. She sighed, reaching to her backpack and taking out a tablet. And there it is again, she murmured under her breath and winked at me. Coming. I went toward the activists. As I walked towards Daniel, I heard more and more of the argument. Olga, you can't, Cornell was saying. Pat stood next to him with her tablet. She looked a bit amused. Do not fucking tell me what I can or can do, Cornell, the one with dreadlocks interrupted. I can because they are destroying our mother. I can fight with all means at my disposal, even if that means burning those harvesters to the ground. Cornell raised his eyebrows. So she mentioned mother, right? Could they all be werewolves, I wonder? Burn the harvesters? Cornell asked calmly. In this drought? Olga, are you out of your mind? You know what I mean. We fight them any way we can, because this is a fucking war, she spat. He sighed. You've never seen real war, and it shows. Nobody is shooting at us, and believe me, we want it to stay that way. We need a peaceful protest. I approached Daniel. Hey, can we talk? I asked, approaching Daniel. He smiled, zipping his pants. Oh, hi, Maia. I think our leaders are arguing now, and it has to be settled. It's good you came, actually. We need to tell Cornell that he's wrong. Oh, so I was to take a stand. I looked at them. I looked at them both, Olga with her fury and passion, Cornell with his cool professional demeanor, and shared without any reservations what I felt about the situation. There was a fine line to tread. Or peaceful wasn't flashy enough, or it wasn't about personal victory. There was a fine line to tread, I agree. Before the shit hits the fan, right? So, Olga became cautious, Cornell and sympathetic, and Daniel cautious. There's a fine line to tread, I said in the silence. You don't want the protesters to be painted as terrorists, and you don't want them to be treated as irrelevant and ignored. I only inflamed the situation. The argument attracted more and more people. Someone old shook their head and moved forward. They had deep wrinkles, a narrow mouth, and the unisex grace of a tired, heroin-preserved rockman. Jesus, that description. I totally dug their style. They had shoulder-length, disheveled hair, a clean shave, and eyes highlighted with eyeliner, bright blue nails, heavy arm boots, a red skirt, and a tank top completed the look. And pins, lots of pins, all kinds of LGBTQA plus flags, anarchist and pacifist symbols, and I think some German band stripes. I observed them curiously. Olga, darling, you know I love you, but Cornell really knows what he's doing. Please, trust me on that one. They talked to Olga but kept glancing at me as if to check how I reacted. Fuck off, Kim. You didn't even trust me enough to come here on your own when I asked you to. There was a woman at Olga's side. So are they these two? This might be Olga and this might be Kim, right? Next to Olga there stood a woman and she was the most beautiful person I'd ever seen. I couldn't tear my eyes off her or I couldn't help but overhear. I couldn't help but overhear. Lisa. Lisa is cautious. Kim, you want to teach me about violence? She looked them straight in the eye. About fighting oppression just because your boss went to what? One mission in Afghanistan? Her polish was peculiar, kind of mellow. Colonel winced. Lisa, leave Kim alone. He didn't know what to say, and it seemed that the whole discussion would be derailed. I didn't let that happen. Olga grew neutral and Colonel friendly. Hey guys, the forest, I said. The logging, the protest. Olga unclenched her fists. Colonel looked back at her and chuckled softly. You almost punched me. The conversation was over, at least for the time being. Colonel, together with his cronies, walked toward the reporters, while Olga went back to the group of people standing in the shadow of an old oak tree. I looked at the forest. So, now that the forest is friendly, I looked at the pustja. The clearing full of felled trees was like a gaping, bleeding wound in the chest of a friend. I had to do something. So, we grew in rage, right? Our mission is to stop the logging now. I had to do something. I felt righteous rage rising in my chest. I had to stop the logging, but it wasn't something that I could do on my own. I looked at one group, I looked at the other. This is not good. The harvesters were dripping with black oil and the forest stood tall, serene, and full of golden light. It looked like it could protect itself. And then I looked at the felled trees, dead, limp, helpless. Should we go for diplomacy or let's go escalate things? Well, now with full rage, I doubt that we'd be able to conduct a perfect diplomacy, but with that rage, we can escalate things to the fullest and we might end up in a really hairy situation. So, okay, I'm gonna risk and go to diplomacy. I'm gonna risk it and go to the protesters. Let's talk to them. Let's not escalate matters. Let's assist Cornell in that. In the limelight, Cornell owed me some explanations. Hey, wait for me, I shouted and ran after him. Hello, Maia, he said. I see you haven't come alone. He reached out his hand. He had acted like a dick arguing with Olga. No, I'm not gonna submit to my rage, so I shook it. His handshake was firm and strong. His eyes were an uncanny shade of grey. Damn, he looked tough. Damn, you look like a tough guy, I blurted out, impressed. He was in that bad boy hipster military way. I know, he said without skipping a beat. Colonel looked at me in the eyes. I know where you came to Białowieza. So, okay, I need to remember that pronunciation. Białowieza. So the L sounds like a whoa. Okay. Białowieza. The forest is reaching out to you because for a long time your ancestors were its servants, and now you're the only one left to pay what they owed. He seemed to believe it. My family left unpaid debts into the forest. I looked at him skeptical, but he seemed to believe it. He's friendly, so therefore we have the same goal. He looked back at me. Will you help me? I had no time to answer. But before I could answer, I heard a commotion and turned around. The reporters were coming our way, but their cameras were switched off, whoa, and pointed at the ground. They should have been filming. Why weren't they filming? Okay, they should have been filming. You should be filming, I snapped at them. The protest was important, even I knew that, and they just didn't care. Easy there, Cornell put his hand on my shoulder. The reporter shook his head and grimaced. Sorry everyone, we can't do anything. We're not allowed to cover what's going on here. So either the last two show that I do understand what's going on and I comply to that, but I don't comply to that. I can't stand that. The fact that the reporters actually were forced to stand down and not cover this thing. This is a protest and it should be covered by the news, right? What did they mean? What? I exploded. What do you mean you're not allowed? Who said so? Everybody was looking at me. It felt weird. The reporter shrugged. The people who can send an officer your way will kindly ask you to hand over your memory card, or else, go figure, girl. There was a moment of tense silence, and then it all came together. Suddenly I understood the dream. That was the moment I was destined to intervene. We could still use the reporters, or I just had to make the reporters understand, or the protest was too quiet, they needed inspiration. No, I don't want to escalate matters just like that. Let's use the reporters in a different way. I cannot force them to do something they don't want to, or I cannot, unless I actually force the police officers into accepting the reporters on the scene, I can't force the reporters to accept something they cannot. So we could still use the reporters then. Keep talking. I looked at the protesters. Their frustration was getting to me. They were a ragtag bunch thrown together by circumstance, and I was well aware of their frustration and exasperation. I looked around, put my hands in my pockets, and wandered toward the journalists. Yeah, well, I can't judge people as cowards just because they don't agree, they're not as hot-headed as I am. I really want to press that, but I can't actually. This is not the way society works, right? They just needed a little nudge, let's say that. I've always wanted to be a journalist, I said to the nearest one. The fourth pillar of democracy and all that. But maybe things work differently here in Poland. He looked at me with tired eyes. I winked. He smiled. Unspectacular as it was, I managed to connect. And then I acted on it. I can't let in to my rage. I can't give in to my rage. So thus, I've spent a willpower point to keep on my cool. Does it always look like this? I asked. I mean, is it an everyday situation that you can't report? No, answered one of them. He was tall, in his 30s. There were few glances toward him, almost a flash of warning, but it was too late. I'm gonna still keep on my cool and ask, but why were they in Białowieża at all? The press is unfriendly to us. Wait, so why are you here at all? I asked. And then it hit me. You were sent here to find some dirt on the activists, to get something that would compromise the protests. They looked at one another, suddenly unsure of what to say. Then I heard shouts as all can hear protesters clashed with the police, and the cameramen grabbed their gear and ran toward the action. Remember, we want the aggressive ones, shouted one of the reporters. I could see the logo of the national TV station on his camera. Soon we were alone. So basically, it was a setup by the police and the media against the protesters. And the damn fact is that I've spent 2 points of willpower trying to convince someone who was in a setup against us, the protesters, and what we actually portray, what we actually stand for. So soon we were alone. Damn, I feel really cheated now. But yeah, it's not the game, it's just the situation, and I totally understand that. Fuck, Cornell swore and threw his thermal cap at the ground. It bounced, spilling hot coffee everywhere. Someone grabbed me by my shoulder. I turned around and saw Kim. This is when you exit the scene. They turned me around and gently but firmly pushed me away. We'll be in touch, they whispered. No, 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 no. I want to participate in that. The ugly truth. Since my rage is high, I'm saying, when I was on the road to the village and nobody could see me, I stopped and screamed. A startled flock of birds took off from the trees nearby and filled the air with feathers and movement. I was alone, or so I thought. Press is unfriendly, so, well, you had it coming, a voice behind me said, and I jumped. A woman was looking at me. I was fine. I'm fine, I croaked. My throat hurt. She rummaged in her backpack. Here, she said, I have water if you need some. We walked slowly toward the village, and we talked. I learned that she was an independent German reporter who'd come here about a month ago. Her name was Erika. So why are you protesting the logging? She asked after a few minutes of small talk. It was my civic duty. Yeah, it was my civic duty. That's because my rage is high, right? I haven't been here for long, I answered angrily, but I've already learned that Poland is ruled by a right-wing party who are total climate catastrophe denialists. I feel Polish and I have all rights to protest. I looked at her and why are you asking? She looked at me with a renewed interest. Do you know why they're cutting down the trees? She asked back. Because you do know that logging is done by a government company, the state forests? I had no idea. I didn't know that, I admitted. In fact, I knew very little. Thus, my rage got low. So we lost one rage. I know very little about the situation. I realized just what the others have told me. Erika reached for her notebook. It all started with spruce bark beetles. Erika looked into her notes and started explaining the whole situation. That year, the beetles' infestation was of catastrophic proportions, and the foresters decided that the only way to stop it and save the rest of the forest was to cut down as many infested trees as fast as possible. But was the logging legal? Because the other two choices are a bit strange. But is the logging legal? I wanted to know. Opinions differ, but such massively logging in a UNESCO listed area might be illegal, Erika answered. Couldn't they just remove the dead trees? Maybe if they removed the dead trees, the infestation wouldn't spread? I tried to find a solution. They might do that, but dead trees are what makes the forest unique, Erika smiled. There are 20 times more species living on a dead spruce tree than on an alive one. Oh, I didn't know that. Was cutting down the trees necessary? In the end, we asked everything we wanted to, right? Is cutting down trees the only way to stop the infestation? I asked, confused. The foresters state that this is the only way, she said. Some biologists argue that they are cutting wrong trees and doing it too late to change anything. Did they have to intervene at all? Couldn't they just leave the puszcza alone and let nature take its course? I asked. That's one of the options, Erika admitted, but there's a drought, and no one is sure if the forest would survive on its own. So since our rage is balanced, we can say the situation was more complex than I thought, and Erika's answers did nothing to clear the picture. What was the truth? I don't want to spend another point of willpower. I don't want to become incapacitated. So what was the truth? Stop beating around the bush, please, I asked. I need to know the truth. I'm just doing my job, Erika shrugged. I describe all aspects of the situation to you, but it's up to you to decide what you want to do. How convenient. She was putting herself in such a convenient position. Unfortunately, I couldn't just pretend that it wasn't my business. At least I was sure that they were cutting down the trees and the puszcza needed my help. So since I'm brave, I'm gonna act out as one. It was a matter of principle. If I asked you which side you had bigger guns, what would you say? I looked at Erica. The government, she answered. And that's why I stand with the protesters. She looked skeptical. You're not the only one feeling helpless, she sighed. I'm just helping you make an informed choice. The first choice is not good. I said nothing and let my rage pile up. I always felt so angry when there was too much process at once. And everything that happened at the logging site, the heat, the stench of the harvesters, the tension between Olga and Cornell, that you could cut with a knife, it almost sent me into some kind of frenzy. What's the matter? She asked. I told her about my anger. I'm so fucking angry at what I saw. I took a deep breath, then I remembered what Cornell had said. All that mystical stuff. And they say that I have some family debts to pay. I shook my head. It's a lot to take in, and there was that foul smell back there. She looked at me with a weird expression. What smells? She asked. The smell was not the point. Of all the things I told you, you asked about the smell? I huffed. I'm trying to understand what's going on here. She looked at me with a strange expression on her face, as though she wanted to say something, and then thought better of it. She looked hurt. Now the press is hostile. I thought she'd been hurt by my outburst. You'll learn in your own time if you stay here long enough, she said, clearly wanting to drop the topic. I let it go. I shrugged. Cryptic remarks never did anything for me. The situation was complicated enough as it was. I just hoped I hadn't made things worse. We walked on in silence. So it looks like we're not proficient at talking to people normally because we, more often than not, give in to our rage. But then again, sometimes, when you're found in a crossfire and you're getting hit by all sides, you just want to stand your ground and do what you want to. And right now, we wanted to side with the forest and we wanted to protect it. In the end, we got wounded, so our ego got wounded, but so what? So time to regroup. When I came back, Anya wasn't there. I spent a few minutes in blessed solitude, it's afternoon already, right? Trying to put everything together before she came. When she did, she looked at me curiously. So, how was your day? Anya asked. I met a lot of new people. I met some very interesting people, I said, still excited. Activists usually are interesting, she nodded indifferently. They sure are passionate. They argue between themselves more than they argue with the loggers, I added. I had a chat with the reporters. I had a nice chat with the reporters, I grinned, and I learned a thing or two. Anya frowned. I heard that you can't trust them. I never said I did, I winked. I learned a lot. Did you know that the government supported the logging even when it was illegal? I shared my dismay. Anya just nodded solemnly. Yeah, I've read about it. Why didn't you tell me? Well, you have a lot going on, she shrugged. It was everything I wanted to share. I shrugged. Just another day in Białowieża. We sat for a while in silence. There are other villages in the forest, very interesting ones, Anya said from over her travel guide. Pogozelce, a village in the Białowieża forest established in the 17th century to produce charcoal. Budi, known for its open-air folk museum and the copse of ancient oaks. Teremiski, location of an informal summer folk university. Czerlonka, built in the 19th century around the forest industry, now a tourist destination. While you were protesting, I visited an open-air museum and saw the bison. You should see more of the area. Maybe later? I don't want to answer with some negativity like I don't care or I couldn't see everything or so. So maybe later? I'd love to see it all, I sighed, and I'll do that as soon as the situation with the pushcha is resolved. And how's the search for your roots going? Anya couldn't stay silent for long. I shared what I'd learned. It seems that my ancestors lived around the forest for a long time, I said, and there are some kind of debts to be paid. Anya became neutral. Wow, Anya looked impressed, but honestly, I'm not sure what to think. I was tired. I just sat there looking through the window. The day had been full on and I was exhausted. I didn't notice when I fell asleep. I can do anything. It's quiet now, yet I know deep down inside that something isn't right. I ran. I'm running through the forest to the logging site. It's getting dark. The light seeps away as though there are millions of tiny punch holes in the sky through which it can escape, and then the darkness starts to pour in. I welcome the darkness. It's thick, oily, snake-like. It wraps around my ankles, caresses my wrists, then takes my hand and leads me to the site. It's full of maimed bodies. They are all trees, fallen trees, still alive, still struggling for air. And there's a stench. I can smell them. The stench is dark, rancid, putrid. There are monsters at the edge of the forest. They have long skeletal arms. They are wrapped in glistening black tent stains, and each arm has a wide gaping mandible full of wearing blades. They snap at me blindly. I feel rage pumping through me like molten lava, bubbling from the ground, through my feet, up my legs, through my chest, to my head. When I suddenly explode, I charge. And I gain a willpower because I'm defending the forest. With a howl of joy and anticipation, I run toward the shapes and start to destroy. I bite off heads, I tear off arms. I'm a force of nature, unstoppable. And then I wake up. It's evening. Goal identity, find out what's happening to you. I gasped and bolted upright. I was alone. The sun was setting, and in the deep red light in the room looked like it was. And in the deep red light, the sun was setting, and in the deep red light, the room looked like it was bathed in blood. My pillow was on the ground, gutted, and the duvet was in shreds. The air was full of tiny feathers dancing in the draft from the window. What the fuck is going on? So we're on chapter 3, standoff. The previous chapter didn't go as well as we wanted, but then again, this is the magnificence of the story, that you actually encounter something quite unexpected and then make the choices that you want to. In the game, there is no wrong choice. There are only different ones that lead you to different paths and stuff. Let's start chapter 3, the standoff. I need to talk. I couldn't get back to sleep. Since I had arrived in this accursed village, things had been getting stranger and stranger with every passing hour. And now I'd ripped a pillow in half in my sleep. Nothing about it was normal. I needed to talk it over with someone I trusted. The problem was that I didn't trust anyone because I don't have a friend, right? I'd met a lot of people there, but as I realized, I didn't trust anyone. They all seemed to have secrets, but that didn't mean I couldn't use them to get the answers I needed. The sun had just set and the moon wasn't up yet. I started walking. The forest loomed on the horizon. The activists' camp was somewhere there. I soon ran into Anya. "Oh, Maia, good to see you," she said. "We need to talk." "So it's evening." I was all ears. "So we slept quite a bit and then we rose up, right?" "And now we're in the logging camp with Anya." "Cool." "Oh, the activists camp, sorry. I'm wondering if everything's okay. You've been acting strangely," she explained with a sigh. "I've asked around and it seems you've made some risky friendships." Why did she ask around about us? Why the hell is she a gossiper or something? "They know things about my family," I answered, "and I need that information. And I could use some support." "To be honest, I could really use some support," I sighed. "Would you come with me?" "Sure, sister." She grew up sympathetic, and we walked together. So you see her image added to that one. Cool. Altogether now. The camp had a different vibe than the logging site protest. There were more people there. We looked around trying to take it all in. They're coming and coming, Anya laughed excited. The people in the camp seemed quite cheerful. Someone was singing. I heard 3 or 4 girls singing together in a unique Eastern European style called the white voice. It was the most melodic, throaty growling I'd ever heard. I listened for a moment. I stopped and just got lost in the music for a long while. People were milling about, setting up camp, cooking, preparing posters. Everyone was busy. I looked around. I definitely needed to talk to someone about what was going on, about what I felt. I thought about Cornel and his friends. I'm not particularly fond of Olga, to be honest with you. Hello, I said as I approached. Cornel smiled at me. Hello, he said. What brings you here? I need answers, but I don't want to be assertive. I want just to go with the flow. I was confused. I'm confused, I answered. Is it really true? I mean, all the stories I've heard connecting me and the forest. Cornel looked at me with those uncanny grey eyes. I could feel his attention lock on me. Yes, it's true, he said. And that's why we're here, to stop the government destroying the forest, to show that we don't agree and that we hope to make a difference. And you have your role to play. Will it work? I asked. I don't know. All I know is that it worked before. It worked for Gandhi. It worked with segregation and apartheid in the end. It worked with communism. So let's see if it works with capitalism as well. Violence is not an option here. He smiled, and I think you know quite well that anger doesn't really get shit done. Yeah, true. I knew that. I really wanted to give the second answer. I smiled back. Somehow being around him made me feel more relaxed. I know you can count on me, I answered. I had a family debt to pay, and I couldn't be just an observer anymore. So we may have a little citizen protest going on tonight, Cornel said, but I need your support if we want to convince the others. What's gonna happen? They all wanted to do something that night, but after a whole day's discussion, they were still divided on what to do. 3 for one option, 3 for the other. I had the deciding vote. Olga's plan is violence. Cornel's plan is a peaceful protest. Let's go with a peaceful one, because that's what the government looks for to us, violence. And I dare even admit that I suspect that Olga might also be a spy, someone from the government who got into the organization, into the protesters, trying to mix everything up and ruin everything. So it's my accusation against Olga, but I haven't even spoken to her, but that's my hunch. That's what I have. I think that Olga might be an insider. So Cornel is friendly now. A little help from my friends. I'm an activist now. I voted for the peaceful protest, and soon we were on our way to the National Park headquarters and education center. We had some banners to install. Anya tagged along. This is so exciting, Anya whispered. I've never done anything so illegal. Soon we were there. So, as we followed the path only because of my vote, I made a difference. The National Park headquarters were located in something called Palace Park. The name was historical. The name, like everything in Poland, was historical. Centuries ago, some king had his hunting lodge there, but now it was a mishmash of old and new buildings scattered around the park. Some were rough and bulky, made of stone and brick, while others were an extravaganza of wooden porches, lace-like shutters, and meticulously sculpted pillars. There was no one around, but the area was well lit. I looked around. I looked around once more. The moon was hidden behind the clouds and didn't see any stars in the sky. If you didn't count us, the park really seemed empty, dead even. Suddenly I remembered the church located just next to the palace park gate. I could feel its dark silhouette looming in the darkness, waiting. We were ready. They'd spent the whole day painting the sign on a length of material sewn together from what looked like old sheets that were various shades of greyish-white. The dark green letters declared, "Wood is the enemy of the forest." "Where do we hang it?" asked Daniel, who'd come equipped with climbing gear. I shared my recommendations because we're balanced in rage. "I think we should attach it to the drain pipes there and there." I pointed at corners of the building and Daniel grunted in agreement. "It doesn't matter," Olga said, "because hanging the banner is a waste of time." She was clearly upset that we ditched her plan, but perhaps she had a point. Should I challenge her? Or I let her talk? No. If I allow her to talk, she might sway others. Well, she will definitely come into conflict with Daniel. I can't challenge her because I will make her an enemy. I asked her for advice. "So what could we do better the next time?" I asked her for advice. "We could vote for a plan that has the chance to actually help the forest." Olga rolled her eyes. "It's a great banner, and I'm sure it will look good on the pictures published by a number of independent political blogs." She looked at Cornell, "But it's stuck so deep into the overeducated ecological dispute that people won't get it, and the loggers won't care." Cornell just shook his head and gestured Daniel to continue. I waited patiently. Soon the sign was up, screaming our message to all of Białowieża. Cornell looked at me. "Maia, what do you think?" Well, apparently we didn't get a slogan, but we're gonna spend a willpower to say that it was glorious. We don't want to, so Cornell became loyal. It's a bit strange how people's disposition changes in just a second. We've only met the guy yesterday and he managed to have become loyal to us. Yeah. So I didn't really get the slogan, but I said to play it cool. "Oh," I sighed, "it's glorious." "I'm glad you think so," he grinned. "I love the wording. Humans let the forest grow so they can take wood from it, but that isn't the purpose of the forest." Finally, we pulled the banner up. It's an important message. Anya looked up with fire in her eyes. The world must know. I looked at the sign flying high over the park. I was proud of our work. When we finished, Cornell gathered us together. I was proud of what we had accomplished. Thus, I gained a willpower point back, and I contributed to that. We progressed our goal towards our mission. Whatever my family had done, I was starting to pay back the debt. Cornell reached for his bicycle. "Let's go for a trip," he said, "to remind ourselves of what we're trying to protect." Generally speaking, the ecological meaning of that game, the ecological message that the game conveys, is quite important, and people of nowadays the modern people should actually take care about the environment, and we should actually concern ourselves about the world that we live in. So in a sense, this story actually conveys that importance of the message, and I really stand up for it, and it's quite noble. And not only that, but it is not rumored, but it's also known that among the games of White Wolf of the White Wolf universe, Rage the Apocalypse is one with the consistent ecological message, and that people should combat against the destruction of our planet. And this gets carried away really nice into this title. I really appreciate that. And I like it for a change, so it's quite different for a narrative to go that way. And yeah, let's explore it further. So Pucha is friendly, the woods were full of stars, we cycled in silence, enjoying the company of the forest as it enjoyed ours. After some time, the place of power opened up before us. The boulders looked relaxed. A soft breeze rustled in the trees, welcoming us. So I cannot afford becoming tense. We're entering a place of power, and we are about to hear some gunshots. So let's play it cool. So Anya chuckled, so we lost some rage. This is exciting, Anya chuckled, and I relaxed. The energy was still there, I knew it, but it couldn't reach me. Not if I didn't allow it to. I wondered if anyone else felt it as well. Do you guys feel that? I looked at my companions, but before anyone could answer, a loud sound tore through the silence. It was a gunshot. A gunshot. Anya gasped, looking around wide-eyed and terrified. The others tensed up, but they didn't look concerned, just confused. "Who's there?" Colonel shouted. There was a rustle, and I saw a bunch of men in camo, each of them with a rifle coming towards us between the trees. "It's the government people going against us, I tell you." I can't afford taking a step back. I observed them. Spend a willpower. I watched their angry steps and listened to the murmured curses. Suddenly I noticed Bartek was with them. He winced when he saw me. Their leader weighed us up for a moment and finally focused on Cornell. "This area is closed for the night," the huntsman said in Polish. There was contempt in his voice. "There is a hunt going on, and you're all trespassing. We have police officers here, so I would go home if I were you, unless you want to get arrested." The man was nervous. I could smell his sweat, and that because we're brave. I turned to the forest for advice. No, it doesn't look like it's quite passive. This one is quite cowardly. I tried to de-escalate. I assessed the situation. There was still a chance we could talk our way out of it reasonably. I took a step forward. Let's see what's gonna happen now. "Let's be reasonable." I looked at the hunters. "Maybe we should all go home," I said in Polish. "We're disturbing the forest." Oh God, why are you saying that? Come on, Maia. My voice sounded stronger than ever before. There was determination filling my chest. I turned to them. I turned to the hunters, displaying more confidence than I had. I looked at Bartek, but he just turned his eyes away. "You don't tell me what to do, girl," the huntsman backed, and I realized with a shock that he was Bartek's dad. "You hippies go home now, or things will get nasty." I tried to calm him down, thus spending one willpower. "I'm not telling you what to do, sir. I'm speaking to everyone here," I answered. He hesitated and then shrugged. "This is our forest. We grew up with it, and we're not going anywhere. You're the ones who are strangers, so get the fuck out of here." So, which one of these three should we choose? This is quite a nice of a message. People are always that possessive. The forest belonged to no one. He shouldn't have ignored the forest. This will brand us as a loon. The forest belonged to no one. "That's bullshit. The forest belongs to no one," I calmly answered. "He won't listen," Olga said, cracking her knuckles, and then she launched at him. It escalated quickly. Thank God we have Olga in our team, really. A heartbeat later, a full-blown fight began. Everything was in slow motion, and I could see my new friends grinning and throwing themselves at the armed hunters, not paying attention to the fact that they had rifles at all. Anya took a step forward. The fight then hesitated. She looked at me. I cursed and joined the fight. I lost the willpower. The clearing shattered like a broken window into sharp pieces, its edges cut clean by the rays of a flashlight swirling in the darkness. One piece, a shout, another, a silhouette leaping. A dodge, a grunt, a punch, a cry. Curses in 3 different languages. I slipped between the pieces, hiding in the shadows. I body slammed into one of the men, and he stumbled. I threw dirt into his eyes. Cool. Such a nice strategy. Cunning. Cool. I kneeled on the ground for a split second, scooped up a handful of dirt, and then he went for me. I threw all of it into his face. He cried out in surprise, stumbled, tripped, and fell to the ground with a loud thud. A flashlight shone his way. Anya screamed and grabbed my arm. I saw blood, blood on his head, blood on the stone next to his head, blood on the ground, dark and fresh. A victory. So our rage rises. Excellent, a victory. I turned away from the man to look for another target. Then I heard a shout. She killed him, one of the men shouted, the horror clear in his voice. He directed his flashlight at my face, blinding me. Suddenly I realized what we were doing. What are we all doing? I asked, my voice shaking. I felt overwhelmed because of 0 willpower. Oh my god! What's gonna happen? The gravity of the situation dawned on me. The darkness, the shouting, the fear. I felt as if the pieces of broken glass were starting to pierce my skin and brain. I collapsed. I collapsed! I raised my hands to my head and curled up into a ball. I'm sorry, I shouted, almost crying. I didn't mean to. Leave her alone, someone growled. Recognizing the voice, I raised my head. Was it Cornell? It was Cornell. He was bulging, muscles growing bigger, bones getting longer. Woohoo, he's a werewolf! He let out a joyous roar, throwing his hands, now equipped with strong claws, in the air. He grabbed the man and slashed across his torso. What was happening? How could it be real? Why wasn't I scared? I shook my head. Something warm landed on my face. More blood. Howls, terrified screams. Anya looked at me, panicked. What do we do? The man screamed again and pointed a gun at Cornell. I attacked the man with a gun. I want to save the man who tried to save me, and launched myself at him. A gunshot tore through the night, and then there was only pain. Ouch! That hurt. 2 health. We lost 2 health. We got shot, people. The pain was unbearable. Nothing in my life had prepared me for this. I wasn't ready to go. I screamed defiance to the forest, blinded by the blood in my eyes and the searing pain in my shoulder and chest. I knew death was coming for me, but I wasn't ready. The forest didn't care. My story had just begun. I didn't want it to end. The forest caught my fall with a bed of moss and twigs. I stopped thrashing and a cold numbness engulfed me. I gave up. My eyes were open and I stared bleakly up at the trees. There was a small fragment of the sky visible between the branches. The clouds moved and there was light. The full moon. It looked different. Luna in her full glory. The moon was a goddess and she noticed me. Get up, she said. Oh my god, that gave me shivers, really. That gave me the shivers. I got up. I get up, I feel good. I know that I shouldn't, but I don't remember why. I stretch. See, we've got 3 health back and all of our pools increased to 5. That's what means becoming a werewolf, people. We're in Krynos form. Krynos means werewolf. My muscles are sore and cramped, so I stretch like I've never stretched before. My arms are longer, my legs are stronger, my heart is pumping, and I feel like I've spent my whole life packed into a box, and I've finally been set free. I breathe, thus I gain 5 rage. Oh my god. I take a deep breath and feel my ribs and muscles move. The forest smells of blood and fear and excitement. I'm happy. I laugh happily and others' laughter joins me. We laugh and sing to the moon. My mind is clear. And now I become healthy again. My mind is clearer than it's ever been before. I see the world in sharp contrasts of black and white, movement and stillness. I smell prey. I hear language in the hooting of owls, the whistling of the wind, and the snarling of wolves. I am what I was born to be. Something stings me. I look around. There's a small malformed creature pointing a stick at me. The stick blazes with fire and there's another sting. The creature is no threat to me, but its presence is annoying. Its smell almost sends me reeling, and I don't like being pricked. I stick my hand in it. I reach out and stick my fingers in the creature's belly. When I pull my hand back, there are strings attached to it. The creature pulls the strings and dances like a marionette, and for a moment it's funny. Then I lose interest. My ears prick and I hear more creatures running blindly through the bushes. I feel better. It's because of the fight and because of our regeneration capacity, because werewolves can regenerate. They can recover, their health status and stuff. My leg no longer stings and I feel better than ever before. Is this a dream? Maybe it's a dream? I think as I move silently through the undergrowth. The creatures are running away, their backs turned to me. A growl escapes from between my teeth, and one of them turns my way. It challenges me. I roar. I don't want to kill them all. I roar and the creature falls down and curls into a ball. It smells of ammonia. Oh, the guy might have urinated himself. Okay. Piercing light burns my eyes. I hear more creatures coming my way. They want to hurt me. I strike them one by one. I hide in the shadows and they are too slow, too dumb, too clueless to notice me. I strike them down one by one. Some of them fight back. Some manage to defend themselves briefly, but most of them don't see me coming. A new smell. The wind brings a new smell. The air tastes of fur and musk and blood. Shapes move among the trees, but they are no creatures. They are people like me. Suddenly I'm surrounded by them. I think I know them. They seem familiar, so my rage has subsided and I can see clearer now. That's a fantastic approach. It's like I met them in the past, but they were hidden. They close in on me. What do they want? I wait. I relax and wait for them, unflinching. They approach me and sniff the air. Their smells are overwhelmingly familiar. Once the people had sounds attached to them, but now I realize the sounds were not their true names. Run with us, they say. I howl with joy. We howl with joy and everything that hears us trembles with fear. Then we run through the forest and through the night. I get lost in the moment and pay no attention to the others. I am alone in the heart of the forest. I look up and see no moon, only clouds and tangled branches. Something changes. So we become human again. Something changed and I realized how tired I was. I stumbled. Darkness. Nothing was okay. The night sky was full of stars. I opened my eyes. You can hear us screaming, right? You can hear us in pain. Confused, I opened my eyes. The forest around me was thick and dark. The tree trunks, wrapped tightly in dark-leaved ivy, were covered in ripples of lichen where the vines hadn't taken hold. The thorny, leafless bushes at their base were overrun with nettles. The fungi radiated with a ghoulish, sickly green light. Dark, sponge-like mushrooms clung to the fallen trees. This is the exact same description that we read on the very first episode in the dreams. And and we got the very same choices as well. The set of choices. I tried to breathe. I took a deep breath and winced. There was this foul smell in the air. Suddenly I realized it wasn't the forest that smelled so foul, it was me. I looked down and saw my hands covered in dark substance. I was naked, a sticky, glistening film of liquid was clinging to my skin. I could feel it on my face, in my hair. Blood. I felt something waking in my chest, a long guttural scream. I knew what was coming. I remembered my dream and slowly lifted my eyes. There was a severed head right in front of me. I winced and touched it, as I did the other day, right? Overcoming my disgust, I gently touched its wet hair and watched as the head toppled over. The face was contorted, the eyes bulging, the mouth open, as though the head was still struggling for air. I recognized that face. It was Bartek. It was Bartek, his face spattered with dried blood. There was so much of it, I couldn't see his freckles. The head watched me with reproach. Okay, so I killed Bartek, right? I screamed. No, I let out a long blood-curdling scream. The night swallowed it. The bushes rustled, and a moment later I saw Cornell coming out from between the trees. He looked at me, at the head, at my face. He came closer and squatted beside me. This is what we were trying to tell you, his grey eyes smiled. See, you're a werewolf. I looked at him, I blinked, and everything faded to black. Oh my god, this is fantastic. And a fantastic way to end the run through today. We've just finished chapter 3 and we only discovered that we are a werewolf. We actually have it in us. We kinda knew that we were, some sort of mysterious when it came to our origins because we didn't know many things and all, but it was a fantastic way to actually discover and realize what we truly are. So I'm really excited to carry on and move forward with a episode, but I have to cut it short here. And yeah, it's been over an hour, right? So thank you very much for watching today. If you really liked what you saw, feel free to subscribe to my channel and also click on the bell button down below so as to be notified when a brand new video goes online. Please join me on the next episode as we get to chapter 4, Lost in the Woods, and find out what's going on with us in the story of Werewolf the Apocalypse. Thank you very much. Take care. Bye-bye.